Good morning, everybody. Welcome To The Point. Hope you're doing well on this Thursday morning. Beautiful day out there, and we have a lot to dive into today. A number of hockey games to recap, which we will do in great depth in just a little bit. We're going to talk about the RBC Canadian Open that teed off this morning at Hamilton Golf and Country Club. The Canadian Major, if you will, always fun. Obviously, Nick Taylor winning it in dramatic fashion last year. We'll look at the favorites going in, the leaderboard currently, all of that. We still got an NBA series. The Timberwolves extended the series. We got Game 5 in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities tonight, so we'll look at that in just a little bit. But I want to start today not with hockey, but with tennis. Roland Garros in France on the red clay. This is day 5 of the tournament. It's been interesting because there's been a lot of rain. They only completed 8 matches yesterday, just the matches that could be played under the roof on court Philippe Chatrier and court Suzanne Lenglen. And currently, there's only 2 matches going on right now with rain continuing to happen, so it's been impacting the tournament. Canadians went undefeated in the opening round for the first time since the 2020 US Open, which is staggering. So that was a positive, but I love tennis. Tennis is like golf. You get up for the big events. I'll watch it. Otherwise, I like watching the Monte Carlo Masters, Madrid, the Miami Open is a great event in April every year. But the majors are where you make your money. The majors are where you build your legacy. Federer, Serena Williams, Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal. They aren't greats because they won, a tennis tournament in Toronto, or they won a tennis tournament in Morocco. You go to these majors, you find a way to win one. And yesterday, you got a treat because you had the 2-time reigning French Open champion on the women's draw, Iga Swiatek, who has been dominant. She's won the last 2 events on clay, defeating world number 2 and Australian Open champion Aryna Sabalenka in both finals in Rome and in Madrid. She's cruising going in, and she gets a bad draw. She gets Naomi Osaka in the second round. Osaka had a child, was away from tennis. She's outside the top 200 in the rankings right now, and she's not really a threat to win. But yesterday, you saw 2 great players go to battle. Nearly a 3-hour match, and Swiatek was down 5-2 in the third set, seemingly dead to rights, and broke Osaka 3 straight times to win the match and survive and advance. I got a couple things from this. Swiatek can beat anybody. She's great on clay. It's her best surface. And it would have opened up the draw for women like Coco Gauff, who they've met multiple times on clay. And Swiatek always seems to get better of Coco. It would have helped Sabalenka on the other side going, well, I know I don't have to play her in the final. She's, the unbeatable force on clay. I don't have to withstand with that. But she overcame it. She battled, kept points alive, hit winners. And yeah, it's a long match. And you got a long way to go. And it'd be better if you weren't playing in a 3-hour match in round 2, but sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Carlos Alcaraz and Stefanos Tsitsipas both went 4 sets yesterday. They both won the respective matches, but sometimes the opponent comes to play. And Naomi Osaka when she was at her best, beating Serena Williams at the US Open. And it was overshadowed because Serena did make it a bit about herself, and the media kind of ran with it, and I didn't like the way it was covered. But with female players on the planet, she's dealing with mental health stuff. She had a baby. She seems to be in a better place. And if she's playing the way she played yesterday, she can get back to the top of the rankings. She can compete with the Swaitek's, with the Sabalenkas of the world, because she's that good. Her power, her ground strokes, she has it all in her bag. And that was good to see, because you see her lose a second round match. I think it was in Australia. It was kind of nondescript, straight sets, and you go, okay, well, she lost to an unseeded player. She didn't look that great doing it. You get to Roland Garros, and yeah, it's a Wednesday afternoon, but you're still playing the world number one. You're still playing the woman that's won back-to-back French Open championships. That's the queen of clay right now, the best by far. And you took her to the limit. Osaka should have won the match. She should have advanced. She should have pulled off the upset of the tournament. We talked last week. Let me find it here. It's last Friday's show. Osaka going into this, minus 160 favorite to win the whole thing. Sabalenka next at plus 500. She's an overwhelming favorite. And Osaka nearly pulled it off, and that's the thing. You got to close the deal. But for her, I think that's encouraging to see her push somebody like that to be in a position to beat somebody of her caliber. And she's now minus 185. So it went down a little bit. Everybody's remained the same. Sabalenka plus 500. Rybakina plus 850. Both women have already won this morning, advancing to the third round. Coco Gauff into the third round. Danielle Collins of the United States has not advanced yet because of the rain. She's currently up a set, but it's interrupted on court 10. But it was great tennis, great drama. Both women played great, and it looked like two major champions going up against one another. Wasn't Swaitek and the Osaka who's past her prime. Osaka is not Nadal. She's still a young woman that I think can find her game again and be back in the mix. Because before she left, she was as good as anybody. She's only 26. She'll be 27 in October. She's never had that much. The best she had gotten at the French was a third round. Clay's not her best surface. Hard court season, look out. She's going to get exemptions into tournaments because she's a major champion, because she's a draw, because of all those things. It happened to Nadal. Happens to these guys when they're playing. When you're an all-time great and you're a champion, they want you in their tournaments. They want you to show up. And that makes too much sense. Now, unlike Osaka, for Rafa Nadal, it might not be over, because I don't want to be the one to tell somebody what to do with their career. There's sometimes, I'm a huge fight fan, as you all know. I love the UFC. Boxing's become more and more interesting. And there's times you see somebody get knocked out time after time after time, and you go, you know what? It's time for you to go. I don't want to see you're punch drunk. I don't want to see you take any more damage. Just retire. It's healthier for you. It's healthier for the sport. You're a Hall of Famer. You're all of that, right? And that happens to people. Happened to Frankie Edgar in the UFC. Happened to Cain Velasquez a little bit. Eventually, you can't take anymore. And I don't see that with Nadal. If his body can be healthy enough to play, then why not play? He played Sasha Zverev in the first round. He wasn't playing some stiff. Sasha Zverev, who had just won the Italian Open, the world number 4, multiple-time major finalist, and he lost to him. That's going to happen. Djokovic is losing to unseeded players en route to this. He's not beating heavyweights. It's not calling for him to retire. So if Rafa wants to keep playing, I'll watch his matches. Because he's Rafael Nadal and he's one of the best tennis players ever. We were all lucky enough to be alive during the greatest era of tennis ever, in my mind. Jimmy Connors, Borg, McEnroe, Sampras, all really good players, major champions, great stuff. Agassi, don't get me wrong. And again, I wasn't old enough to watch that, but I know it was good because I'm a tennis fan, and my mom loves tennis, and we talked about it. My dad pretends to, but he, on the computer looking up card deals. But to think of what we got to see. Novak Djokovic, Rafa, Federer play their entire careers. And on the women's draw, you got to see Serena Williams, the best female tennis player ever, and I don't think anybody will come close to what she accomplished. And I don't think anybody will get to the heights of Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal. Because to do it for that long so successfully, hard to see anybody doing it. So we're fortunate for that. Federer's retired. I think it would be great if Nadal, and he's talked about this, if Nadal and Carlos Alcaraz played doubles together at the Olympics. And they play, and it'd be awesome if they won, even medaled, and he left as a champion there. He could play at Wimbledon. He's won at Wimbledon. He's won everywhere. But he's not known for being a grass court player. That's not his bread and butter. Hard courts, but the clay, that's what Rafa dominates. So if he wants to come back and play next year, I will watch him play at Roland Garros because it's Rafael Nadal. And every time a great is in there, you want to absorb it. You want to appreciate it. Watch it one more time. It's like concerts. I should have went to the Tragically Hip last tour. I didn't. I'll regret it forever because I never will get to see them live. Same with Fleetwood Mac. I wish I would have gone with my dad. There was a concert in Montreal. We never got to go. He did get to see Stevie Nicks after the fact, and I'm happy he did. Because that band means something to him, and it means something to me. Certain things. I was happy I was available Monday morning to watch him play Sasha Zverev, and he battled hard. He could have won the match. That's the crazy thing. He was building momentum. And you're like, could he do this? Just didn't happen to be his day. You're playing a young, hungry lion who's trying to do something that you've done over 20 times. Sasha Zverev's trying to win one major. Stefanos Tsitsipas is trying to win one major. Carlos Alcaraz has won a few, but he's trying to win more. Jannik Sinner, as good as he is, he's only lost 4 times in 2024. He's trying to win a second major. It took him so long, so much effort just to get to one. Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, all over 20. All sustained dominance, sustained success, world number one forever. So I just think it's special when you get to see that, when you get to see those best players do it possibly one last time at a certain location that they love, that means something to them. The rest of today, we'll see with the weather, because it's up in the air. As I said, rained out right now. Sasha Zverev is on court. Suzanne Longland playing David Goffin of Germany. He's up a set and a break. Djokovic is next up on Chatrier, so he'll be on court. Still to come today, you have Gaël Monfils of France. Felix Auger-Aliassime is up 2-1 when his match got postponed. Medvedev is through this morning. Denis Shapovalov is a set apiece and 1-1 in the third with Francis Tiafoe of the United States. That'd be a big win for him if he could get it. Madison Keys on court next after Zverev. Azarenka, Kasatkina, Bianca Andreescu scheduled to compete this afternoon. Leila Annie Fernandez was playing yesterday, got suspended. Her match has not resumed yet today. She's playing Wang of China. She's serving for the match when they come back on court. She's up 5-3 in the second set. So still some Canadian content to finish up their matches. We got, like I said, big names, Ons Jabber, Swaitek, Coco Gauff in the women's draw, all through. Svitolina, Rybakina, Sabalenka. A lot of seeds are moving on. No major upsets yet. As I said, a couple of the main guys have lost sets, but they remain in the draw, and it's shaping up, moving forward here, to have a lot of heavyweight matchups with top seeds still being in it. I like that. See the best play the best, see what happens. See if somebody can break through on the men's draw. Like I thought Tsitsipas might be that guy to win his first major championship on his best surface. So we'll keep tabs on that. We'll talk about it more as the tournament rolls on. But a fantastic match between Swaitek and Osaka yesterday, and the possible final outing for Rafael Nadal at Roland Garros. Let's move from the clay courts to the ice. The Edmonton Oilers proved something last night that I didn't know that they could do. They out-Dallas Starred the Dallas Stars. What do I mean by that? They mucked up the game. They limited scoring chances. They didn't give up anything. They played their game. And ultimately, it won. You saw the speed. You saw the electric plays from certain guys, but it was a team effort. from the Edmonton Oilers last night. Wasn't individuals just standing out to me. After the first 10 minutes, that were a horrible excuse for a 10 minutes of hockey, that looked like giving up, that easily could have been the white flag to go, you know what? This isn't our year. The Dallas Stars are better than us. They're built better. And yet, nope. They overcame. They battled through. Chris Knobloch deserves some credit as well. He made 3 lineup changes going in to a Game 4 that they had to win at home. He takes out Warren Foegele, who had played every game of the playoffs. He inserts Philip Broberg, a defenseman who's kind of rovered between the AHL and the NHL this year. Ryan McLeod comes back in after being a healthy scratch. And the veteran, the worm, Corey Perry, gets back into the lineup. You could argue all 3 had an impact. Ryan McLeod scored the first goal of the game. Corey Perry assisted on it. They played with Draisaitl for most of the night, and I thought the line was very good. But to take out that many pieces, to go, you know what, this isn't panic. We have good guys available, sitting there, hungry, ready to play. Let's put them in. And it worked. And decisions to keep fourth-line guys like Connor Brown and Matthias Janmark in the lineup because they're good defensively and they're good on the penalty kill is genius in and of itself as well. To me, after the 10-minute mark of the first period, Dallas was chasing the game and they never found it. And when Edmonton got the lead and they had momentum, they never let Dallas back in. They didn't give them an opening. They didn't give them hope. They just said, you know what? Hey, we're the better team. We know it. And we're faster. We're going to clamp down. We're going to be in good position. And they played a flawless game. 5 unanswered goals. The momentum from start to finish after that point. And I never thought they were going to lose the way they were playing. You go, okay, well, they got it. Dallas outshot Edmonton in the third period, but how many good chances did they get on Stuart Skinner? 1. Jamie Benn got a look. That was about it. Do you remember any of those shots? I don't. Edmonton still outshot Dallas for the game. Dallas only had 22 shots on goal last night. They didn't have the puck. They couldn't do anything with it. Edmonton only had 1 power play, but they didn't need power plays. They played 5-on-5. They're better. They scored a shorthanded goal by Matthias Janmark, which we'll get to in a second. But to me, Dallas is a team mentality. Stan Coven might score a goal. Wyatt Johnson might score a goal. Heiskanen chips in. Jamie Benn on the forecheck. It's a collection of players coming together to form a great team. Edmonton often is, we got McDavid, we got Draisaitl, and we have Evan Bouchard. Last night, it was a team game that won. McLeod scores a goal that shouldn't have happened because Ottinger should have covered it. He didn't. And Ottinger didn't have his greatest night. Made it 2-1. Not long later, McDavid, hockey IQ through the roof. Let's not shoot directly at the crest. We know we have a 2-on-1 because we won a board battle. A great play. Just a hard-working goal. Let's shoot it off the far pad, right on the tape of Evan Bouchard, in the back of the net before Ottinger could react. 2-2. Then you're going through, tight game, no real great scoring chances in the second period, but I feel Edmonton's fine. They take a penalty. Block shot goes one way to the next. Connor Brown, beautiful feed to Janmark. It's 3-2. Then Draisaitl makes it 4-2. The game's over. Empty netter. See you later. Edmonton turned defense into offense. They were great in the neutral zone, turning pucks over, on Dallas all the time, skating. And they looked like the better team. They look like, hey, we have more skill and we're willing to work with that skill. And we can beat you with that combination. I thought Perry was great coming in. Thought you saw plays from Draisaitl and McDavid where they cared defensively. We're not going to let you gain momentum. You're not getting in. Early on, like that Johnson goal where Brett Kulak's in a neutral zone, and I don't know why he's that far up, and he's in a horrible position, and then Johnson just goes in and snipes. I go, uh-oh. And then not long later, 2 goals on 4 shots, and the Wyatt Johnson line has 2 goals. And not to mention Darnell Nurse is on the ice for both of them, so you know that's going to be a headline today if the Oilers lose, but it's not. They won. Kulak and Nurse. Not the huge problem, I suppose. The Darnell Nurse, he met with the media yesterday. If you missed this, it was awkward. He was very short with the media. I think he's frustrated. I get that. I think Darnell Nurse is a good player, personally. Played 19 minutes last night. He threw 12 hits. You can believe that. He had 12 hits. Hyman was the next closest with 5. He makes mistakes. He has bad reads. But to me, he's not a horrible player, and he gets labeled as one. If you're watching the game last night and you're only doing box score and you go, Darnell Nurse a -2, then that automatically means you have a bad game. You could have nothing to do with either goal, which he didn't, by the way. And this is why plus-minus is a meaningless, useless, archaic statistic, because to me, looking at something going, well, I was a +1, I had a good game. That's way too generic. I remember playing as a kid. There'd be games I had 2 goals. I didn't think I had that good of a game. I could have made better passes. I could have defended better. There were shifts. I just didn't have it. I made a defensive play that I should have recovered. You can score a goal in a game and go, oh, we scored a goal. Okay, yeah, I did on that one shift. What did I do the rest of the game? How good was I for the rest? Again, plus-minus. I still try to explain this to my parents. I'm never going to win this battle with them because they love it. It's like a drug to them. But it's so garbage, the statistic. Did you make good plays? Did you watch the game? I don't know. But Darnell Nurse, to me, has he had games where he makes mistakes? Absolutely. But plus-minus is not be-all, end-all to what you are and what kind of game you had. He was fine last night. Ended with a 0. Was that a bad game or a good game? I don't know. Edmonton's secret juice, if you will, their secret weapon is the penalty kill. It's going at 100% clip in the conference final. It was at 100% clip in the first round, 88% clip in the second round. It's what their power play should be, but their power play has not scored a goal in the conference final so far. But their penalty kill, they're in lanes, they block shots, they create opportunities. They scored a shorthanded game-winning goal last night. They are aggressive. They attack. They know who they are. They have really good penalty killers that are comfortable doing it. That's half the battle. And Dallas creates nothing on their power play. They lose momentum, you could argue, on their power play. Because that's just how good Edmonton is. Connor Brown can't score goals, but he can be aggressive. Get in the lane. Push the puck the other way. Matthias Janmark is fast. He does have some pretty good hands. He scored some big goals in these playoffs for Edmonton. Game winner last night. He was the first star of the game, which, stupid, but nevertheless. Looking forward here, you have a best 2 out of 3. 2 games in Dallas, potentially 1 in Edmonton. I think Edmonton plays better on the road, and I think Dallas plays better on the road. Dallas lost Chris Tanev last night. He didn't play in the third period. They say they're optimistic for him to be in the lineup on Friday. I think he'll play because he's a Warrior, and that's just the way he's built. But he could be hindered. But I've always thought this. Edmonton, with the best players, if they lock in, if Stuart Skinner is average, then they're going to be fine. He didn't have to be great. He made some good saves last night, but he didn't have to be great. They gave up 22 shots. I'm not going to hear a goalie had an awesome game with 22 shots on goal because you didn't. Because your team defended pretty well in front of you, and you did your job. Bully for you. All that being said, I think for Edmonton, you go, if we defend the way we've been defending, we keep getting production from our stars. McDavid had 3 assists last night. Draisaitl scores a goal. Our others are contributing as well. We can beat anybody. And I agree with them. Because their best players are so good, and because they're buying in as a team right now. They're buying into the system. They're buying into who they are, their identity. They play great defensively in the regular season as well. And I thought for a while there, especially March, they weren't playing very well into April. I go, this team's going to have to play run and gun hockey to win it all. But then they started to show me, okay, they're playing better. They're buying in a little bit. They're sacrificing for each other. And there's not a whole lot of ice. And yet McDavid's still finding a way to use what's available to his advantage and make things happen. Johnson and Rupe Hintz, Stan Coven, those guys will have a response in Game 5. Game 5 is so massive. Because we've seen Edmonton's won a Game 7 in the playoffs, so has Dallas. It wouldn't scare me to play a Game 7 in Dallas for Edmonton. Their crowd's fine, but it's not like the crowd in Edmonton last night where it's crazy and they're playing La Bamba at the end of the game. And that's just a Canadian crowd who's psyched to have a team that's even in contention to win a Stanley Cup because it's been such a long time. 2006 for the Oilers. The last time they got to a Stanley Cup final. They can play you look at their spurts. The first period they were great in games 2 and game 3, and they kind of fell asleep. When in this series, when they are at their apex, they look more dominant than Dallas does. And that's what I'm banking on. I think Edmonton's gonna win the series. I think you look at Tanev being banged up. Rupe Hintz had to come back from injury, and he wasn't as effective last night. That line wasn't buzzing like they were in Game 3. I mean, for Dallas, I thought Stankoven was one of the better players. Jamie Benn has had a really good series, to me. But Robertson, Pavelski's been really quiet. Duchesne. If Edmonton wins Game 5, they are winning the series. No, I think even if they lose Game 5, I think they can win the series, but it makes it a whole lot more difficult. But if Edmonton wins on Friday night, they will win the series, and I think they'll win it at home. I don't think it'll go back to Dallas, even though I predicted Edmonton in 7 before the series started. That crowd will just be buzzing. That team will be fired up to be there. Best two, this is all you want. Conference finals. 4 great teams. Dallas got to a conference final last year, has had this nucleus, and they don't want to be the San Jose of the mid-2000s. And oddly enough, Peter DeBoer coached that team for a while. You get close, but you never win. You have great players, and Joe Pavelski was on that team as well. Now, Dallas is so game. They can play. They will be better on Friday. Back at home. And it's a great moment for Dallas. Dallas Stars in the conference final. Dallas Mavericks in the conference final. Dallas Mavericks 1 game away from punching their ticket to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2011. The Dallas Stars trying to punch their ticket 2 games away from punching their ticket to the Stanley Cup Final. First time since the bubble when they lost to Tampa. I think Heiskanen's so important on Friday for Dallas. Just set the tone offensively and defensively. Spark Johnson. Spark Robertson. Be game for all of them. Make it easier for them. Make life as simple as possible. And just attack. So, I'm curious. I can't wait to watch that game. Because there's a different storyline every night in this series. How is a team going to come out and play? How do they look? How do they come out and approach it? They've been pretty impressive when they want to be. They just got to put it all together like they did last night. And I think they're better. And I think they'll win the series, but we shall see Game 5 tomorrow in Dallas, Texas. And the other series, Rangers Panthers. All hail Igor Shesterkin, the king of New York, the best player in this series. And you could argue the only reason that it's been close. Both games at home, the Panthers were the better team, and they only won one of them. Because Igor Shesterkin plays phenomenal in the third period, and he keeps his team alive. Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider have not done a whole lot in this series. Been as quiet as a church mouse. Kreider popped up out of came up for air when he threw Matthew Tkachuk's mouth guard into the stands, or almost into the stands. But other than that, he's been incognito since that great Game 6 performance against Carolina. Panarin's been hanging off to the outside, not really wanting to engage, doing his normal ordeal. And Zibanejad's just been quiet, a guy who doesn't like to mix it up much as well, not getting to the tough areas. And when you're not getting to the tough areas, it's extremely difficult to win in the playoffs. So that's the narrative in New York. Our best players aren't playing that great, where you look like Sasha Barkov, Sam Reinhart. Even though Tkachuk hasn't scored many goals, if you know anything about hockey, he's played a pretty damn good series. If you're watching the games and not watching the box score, his lines are attacking. They're dominant when they're on the ice. Expected goals, all that jargon with the nerds, that's producing as well. But I was watching the other night, and I go, it's going to overtime again. Third straight game. Doesn't get closer than this series. And I go, well, the Rangers are probably going to win this game. Same story. They're dominated in the third period. Not even close. Nothing positive is happening for New York. Shesterkin robs Kyle Oposo late in the third period with a beautiful save. And I go, well, that could be the moment. Maybe that's Shesterkin kind of locking in the series. But early into overtime, breakdown by the New York defense. They're forced to take a penalty because Sasha Barkov would have went in on a breakaway. Take a hooking penalty. 12 seconds into the power play, Sasha Barkov finds Sam Reinhart in his office, which is about at the hash marks. That's where he likes to rip the puck. He ripped it, bar down, and the Panthers even up the series at 2, heading back to the Mecca this evening. For Florida, my game plan's the same. We're going to keep playing the way we're playing. Let's not take penalties, because 5-on-5, while it might not look like we're the better team because we can't score in Shesterkin, we are. We're getting so many better looks. We trust our best players more than they do. Reinhardt's been good in this series. Tkachuk, as I said, has been good in this series. Barkov. Sam Bennett, I thought, had a great game 4. He was engaged. He was locked and loaded. But you look, after it was 13-11 New York first period, second period 14-5, 13-5, and 2-0 in the overtime for Florida. Okay, give the Rangers the first period if you want. After that, it's Florida dominance. Control the puck, everything. But if I'm Paul Maurice, I'm saying we're playing the same game. We're going to keep attacking. We're going to keep hitting Ryan Lindgren because he's definitely a little bit banged up. We know it. It's the playoffs. We're playing for keeps. Keep hitting them. Go after Fox. And that play by Fox the other night to set up Lafreniere for that goal. Oh my God, what a play that was. What a play that was. But if I'm Lafreniere, I'm looking in the mirror, and if I'm Trocheck, and I go, could somebody come help me? We're tied in this series because Shesterkin's wanted to play, we've been productive, and you guys have done jack squat to help us win. Could you show up to the party? Forecheck, something. Block a shot, be engaged. Could you at least try to tell me that you're on the ice for the night? Do something productive? Because otherwise, I wouldn't know. Shesterkin's the ultimate equalizer. He could win the Rangers this series because they're not the better team, but they weren't better than Carolina, and they beat Carolina too. So if you have the better goalie, and he's playing out of his mind like Shesterkin is, that's all you really need. Now, for the Rangers tonight, you're back at home. That crowd will be buzzing. Momentum's on your side, you could argue, because of how they've survived this long. I think internally, if you're Peter Laviolette, you go, it's about time we play a good game here. It's about time where we go through a game and feel like, hey, we outplayed Florida. Are we capable? I would think internally you think you're capable of that. You won the President's Trophy. You were better than Florida in the regular season. But I think Bobrovsky, who was locked in game one, can have one of those games himself. He's capable, like Shesterkin, to have a 40-save performance and steal a game for the Panthers. You need those throughout the playoffs. You got one in game one. He was fine in game four, but Shesterkin's been the better goalie of the series. I think the Rangers are going to come out tonight desperate, knowing they need to have this one. And Peter Laviolette's a veteran coach. He'll have that team ready to go. And they hired Peter Laviolette to win a cup, to come in here and finish the job and get this team over the hump. They're 2 games away from a Stanley Cup final, which begins a week from Saturday. They can beat them. They can beat Florida because of what I've outlined. But I think goalie Bob's going to have himself a game tonight. Similar to the one like game one. Make saves. Florida gets the first goal. Quiet that crowd. And ride the wave the rest of the way. I have the Panthers winning another close game. I have it 3-2 Panthers tonight. Easily could go to overtime again. It's 3 straight games in overtime. Both goalies will be fantastic. I think Zibanejad scores a goal tonight. There's a prediction for you. But ultimately, I look around and I go, I love Lafreniere. I love Trocheck. But I think Florida has more options. More ways that they can skin a cat. More ways that they can beat you. Different players who are going to step up. Different guys who can score a goal when it needs to happen. But this series has been fantastic. As I said, it can't get closer. Game 1 might as well have been a 1-goal. It was 1-goal game with 3 minutes left, and Lafreniere scored an own goal. They had an empty netter. Game 2, overtime. Game 3, overtime. Game 4, overtime. Another close one, but the Panthers edge the Rangers at the Mecca tonight. Breaking news here. Dolphins star wide receiver Jalen Waddle to sign 3-year, $84.75 million extension through 2028. That includes $76 million in guaranteed money. This is interesting. Jalen Waddle's a hell of a player. Part of that 1-2 duo with Tyreek Hill in Miami. He now becomes one of the league's top 5 highest paid wide receivers. Waddle and Tyreek Hill can be banged up. That's the one knock you can have on them. Like to start the playoffs last year, Tyreek Hill was not healthy. His ankle was compromised, and I don't know if the Dolphins were ever going to beat Kansas City. Remember how freezing cold that game was? Three fans had to have amputations after that game because of how cold it was. But they've never been healthy at the greatest times. He's 25 years old. I do think he's a hell of a player. He has 251 catches, 3,385 yards, 18 touchdowns in 47 games over 3 seasons. If you look at what you want from a guy, coming from Alabama and getting him into the league, I think it's great. It's hard to argue that he hasn't been fantastic. But I don't mind it. Tyreek Hill has a couple years left on his deal. Jalen Waddle signed through 2028. You have Odell Beckham Jr. for this season. Tua, the last year of his rookie deal. So they have a decision to make on him. I would not sign him. That's just me. I'm not signing him to a long-term deal worth $50 million. I want to see another year of health. I want to see another year of really good football. In a perfect world, you want to see another year where you can actually win a playoff game. You made the playoffs in back-to-back years, but you lost both times. Losing to Buffalo in Buffalo, losing to Kansas City in Kansas City. And again, what that tells you is you got a warm weather team traveling to 2 of the coldest places on earth in January. That's not optimal. That's suboptimal for winning. That's suboptimal for improving year over year with those 2 set of circumstances that come your way. But Miami lost a lot of players and they lost a lot of players in a lot of different ways. Bradley Chubb, torn ACL. Jalen Phillips, torn Achilles. Christian Wilkins leaves for a bucket load of money with the Raiders in Vegas. Lost a couple players in your defense. You had to cut Xavier Howard. So your team's a whole. You lost Vic Fangio to the Eagles, your defensive coordinator. So the team's different. The team's not as good right now on paper as they were to end the season. Offensive lineman left for Tennessee. So you're trying to fill holes and yet remain competitive. And you have Raheem Mostert returning, who led the NFL in touchdowns. You have Tyreek Hill, who led the league in receptions and receiving yards. Jalen Waddle, who's an underrated, you could argue, number 2. Tua's a pretty good quarterback. You got a team, for sure. Mike McDaniel, one of the best young coaches in the NFL. Brilliant mind. I like him. I think he's a good coach. I think he's, part of that wave of the future. So They have good things going in Miami, certainly, but it's what they can do with it. A lot of money to a lot of guys, but if it doesn't result in winning, then we know what that means as sports fans. That means it's a failure. It didn't work. Juice is not worth the squeeze, if you will. So I don't think it's a mistake. I don't think you want to lose really good talent. If you can keep it, if you have really good wide receivers, you want to keep them. And yeah, there's always good receivers in the draft, but if you're a good enough team to make the playoffs, you're not going to be in position to get those receivers, quite frankly. And they're a team that needs to fill holes elsewhere. So keep the wide receiver you have in-house. You know how good he is. You must like him as a person. He's never had a problem off the field as a member of the Miami Dolphins or Alabama, for that matter. So do I think he's one of the 5 best receivers in the NFL? I don't, personally. He's not better than his teammate, Tyreek Hill. He's not better than Jefferson in Minnesota for now. He's not better than Jamar Chase. Even if I keep going down here, he's not better than St. Brown in Detroit. I think Armand St. Brown's just a stud. The guy can do it all. If I keep thinking here, again, this is on the fly, and there'll be a name that's so obvious to me that I'll think about in about 10 minutes. I don't think he's better than George Pickens. There's a name. In Pittsburgh. But George Pickens has played with crap wide receivers, with crap quarterbacks his entire career, so we don't know how good he is. Put him with Justin Fields, maybe he's a stud. I don't think Jalen Waddle is better than DK Metcalf in Seattle. So I named 6 right there. So you're paying him like one of the 5 best wide receivers. I don't think he's one of the 5 best wide receivers. So that looks bad. For sure. Is he better than Mike Evans? Even at Mike Evans' advance, I don't know. He can't be a number 1 because he's not a number 1 on his team. That doesn't make him a bad player. I think a lot of these things happen where you're productive and you see where the market's going and you want to capitalize on it. And I 100% understand that from the players. I would too. If you see somebody around you making $25 million a year, why would you go pay me 19? Doesn't make any sense. If you go, I'm just as good as him, I should make 26 because, inflation and groceries are going up and I'd like to make what he makes because I'm just as good. So you have that conversation internally with yourself, then you go have that conversation with your agent and you have that conversation with the team. Seems to me that the player seems to win a lot of these tete-a-tetes. Because quarterbacks, unless you're Baker Mayfield, who I credit the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and I credit Baker for taking a deal that made sense for both sides. Tampa, like Baker, great player last year, won a playoff game, won your division, all that stuff. But after that, they didn't go pay him $50 million a year. They paid him $30 million a year. Because that's what he is. He's a $30 million quarterback. No better, no worse. And he's good enough to get to the playoffs, and maybe with a great team, you could go on a deep run. But you don't screw your team. Like Daniel Jones makes $10 million more than Baker Mayfield. Nobody on earth thinks Daniel Jones is better than Baker. They paid Daniel Jones $40 million a year because they were worried he would get money on the open market. Who was paying him? The XFL? But you're desperate. You have to keep him. Daniel Jones, because we drafted him so high. New GM, and he still signed a bad quarterback to that deal with the Giants. incompetence at its finest. So, I think the Dolphins overpaid. Like I said, it's the going rate, and that's what you have to pay people. But if you can play hardball, push back, and that's what they have to do with Tua. And that's what a team like the Dallas Cowboys has to do with Dak. You're not paying them huge money again. They're really good quarterbacks, don't get me wrong. But neither guy has gone on a run. Dak's been in the league longer. He hasn't ever gotten close to a Super Bowl. And for all the Cowboys fans out there, spare me losing to Aaron Rodgers in a divisional round. Because you would have went to the conference championship and lost to Atlanta. Because that's what the Cowboys do. They lose. I don't think Dak's the problem, but I don't think he's the solution. You have a great team, good running game, and he can just distribute, sure. You can have a good team. Go 12-4. Like the Dallas Cowboys did in Dak's first season. Awesome. Awesome. But you get the 1 seed, get the bye, and then you lose at home to the Packers. And then this past year, Dak, MVP candidate, great season, pretty good team. Home playoff game hosting Packers again with Jordan Love, first playoff game. Young Packers don't know what they're doing. Oh, they go and kick your ass for the whole game. Run you off the field. Big play after big play. You'll lose by 30 at home in embarrassing fashion. So, yes, you need a quarterback to be successful. That's an obvious. But if you have a quarterback on your roster that you don't think will lead you to the ultimate success, then you don't pay him just because you need one. No. And it's a tough calculus because GMs know, if I get off of him, if I move off of him, we're probably going to go from, if your price is right, straight down. Because you're not going to have a great quarterback anymore. So the team's going to go through regression, and the team's going to need time to get better. Is the owner, this is Jerry Jones because he's the owner, but any other situation, is the owner going to give you that chance to find another quarterback to build it back up? Probably not. And that's the difficult thing. Is you sign the contract and it doesn't work out the next year. Then you fire the GM. Because I bet the GM didn't want, either he did or he said, let's not and let me find somebody else. You go, no, I'd rather stick around because we're not going to let you do that. Well, then you have to. Then it looks like a failure. To me, there's a reason Dak, Tua, it's nearly June. OTAs are ongoing. Training camp will be here before we know it. There's a reason those guys do not have contracts yet. And it's because teams are looking around going, you know what? You got 1 year left. Let's play it out. Let's see what you got this year. Hopefully you play well, which means we'll play well. Go to the playoffs. How about you pull a Joe Flacco? Then we'll pay you the money. Go win us a Super Bowl in the last year of your deal. And at least if we pay you stupid money for a long time, at least we can look up at our trophy case and see the trophy. See the Super Bowl. Because that's a better feeling than seeing just a whole bunch of checks going out to a player and the team winning nothing. Joe Flacco earned that money. Changed his life, changed his career arc when the Ravens won that Super Bowl in 2012. At the time, he got the biggest contract for a quarterback ever. but he won that Super Bowl, and he won Super Bowl MVP. John Harbaugh beat Jim Harbaugh. The lights out Super Bowl. I would rather pay somebody after they proved it and after they played that fantastic than do nothing and just say, I'm going to give you big money because we need a quarterback. Same thing with any position, but quarterback gets amplified because they get so much money and they're so important to your team. And if you don't have one, you're screwed. But Jalen Waddle gets an extension. Other wide receivers eligible for deals this offseason include Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins. Put this into context, the first four are all better than Jalen Waddle. If I'm Dallas, I'm paying CeeDee Lamb before I'm paying Dak, I'll tell you that. Justin Jefferson's massively important. Minnesota should pay him. Ayuk is awesome. San Francisco, what they're going to do, Jamar Chase. Jalen Waddle recorded his third consecutive 1,000-yard receiving season in 2023, becoming the first player in franchise history to do so. He holds the Dolphins record for the most receiving yards in his first 3 years of career and set Dolphins rookie records for receptions, 104, and receiving yards, 1,015. He's a really good player. He's been really productive, and he's been a great Dolphin. So I understand why they gave him the deal. And their offense is loaded with OBJ, him, and Tyreek, with Raheem Mostert in the backfield. Their offense is going to have to be good until guys can come back like Bradley Chubb. If he come back and say late November, early December, if Jalen Phillips can come back from his torn Achilles, if they can get bodies back into that defense, maybe they can be a playoff team. I think it's going to be a difficult year. They're going to need a lot to go right in Miami to be a playoff team again because teams have gotten better and they have gotten worse. But they are a really fun team to watch. Really fun team to watch. No debate there. The RBC Canadian Open is underway at Hamilton Golf and Country Club this morning. You got a pretty good field up in Canada, especially a week before Jack Nicklaus' tournament at Muirhead Village in Ohio. Headlined, obviously, by Rory McIlroy, who loves to play in Canada, loves to come up here. But you got the defending champion, you got Nick Taylor in the field, Corey Connors, Rory, as I just said, you got Mike Weir, the Masters champion, playing up here. Keith Mitchell, the Visor, Sammy Burns. Currently, Sean O'Hare, who's 188th in the FedEx rankings, and Sam Burns are tied for the lead at 5 under par. Joseph Bramlett is 4 under through 7. You have Stuart Sink, the veteran, who's 3 under through 9. Joel Damon, 2 under with Keith Mitchell. Rory McIlroy is even par through 9 holes, so not having a great morning when it comes to finding birdies. Mike Weir is 1 under through 8. Good for Weirzy, inside the top 15. Right now, Adam Svensson +1 through 11. Nick Taylor +1 through 9, the defending champion. Roger Sloan +1 through 9. Matt Kuchar, Adam Scott, Daniel Berger, all pretty good players. And Taylor Pendrith, all guys that have won recently, +2. Kevin Kisner +3 through 11. Still to play this afternoon. You got the group of Corey Connors, Fleetwood, and Chad Rami. You have Sahith Theegala, Matt Wallace, Adam Hadwin playing with Bryce Garnett, Mackenzie Hughes, feature group. Let's see. Robert McIntyre's been playing some pretty good golf lately. The Scotsman, he's in the field. He's playing today. It's an okay field. It's not loaded. But good golf tournament. A lot of Canadians playing. If you could see one be in contention at the end of the week, that would be interesting. Going into the start of the tournament, Rory McIlroy was the overwhelming favorite at plus 375. You had Tommy Fleetwood in second at plus 1,600. Sahith Theegala at plus 2,000. Shane Lowry at plus 2,200. Corey Connors, the highest ranked Canadian, at plus 2,500. What was interesting to me is Nick Taylor, defending champion, he was at plus 6,000. Not given a whole lot of love. I do think Shane Lowry is a good pick. He hasn't teed off yet. He's been playing really well down the stretch here. But even if it's a slow day for McIlroy, if it's a slow day for Fleetwood, they could come back and play really well at this course tomorrow, make it interesting. So I don't think one day will define it. If we go on FanDuel Sportsbook real quick here, I'm curious to see the odds after it's been ongoing. McIlroy remains the favorite at plus 400. Sam Burns is now the second favorite because that's a sucker bet to pick Sam Burns right now, plus 650. Tommy Fleetwood at plus 1,400. Keith Mitchell plus 1,600. Corey Connors plus 2,200. You got Cam Young. Mac Hughes plus 4,000. Adam Hadwin plus 6,000. He's been playing some good golf as well, Adam Hadwin. So if I had to pick a Canadian this week, I'm picking Hadwin. He had that moment last year where he got tackled at celebrating Nick Taylor's win. He's played pretty good golf at the majors, making the cuts. He's looked good as of late. So he'd be my pick for the Canadian guys, but I like the RBC Canadian Open. I like having a tournament up in Canada every year. Great crowds. People are into it. You have the rink hole on 13, which is where the overdrive guys are hanging out for the week. What you want is a tight leaderboard on Sunday. Sunday morning, you wake up, you go, there's 8 to 10 guys within 2 strokes. You go, that's pretty good. That's what you want more than anything. It'd be nice if there's a Canadian there, but even if there isn't, you have 8 guys and they're all within a stroke. That's money. That's entertainment. And if one of those guys is Rory, that's also optimal because he's the best player at this event. And, you'd like to have a big name in the leaderboard. It's nice to say, we have Sean O'Hare, who's in the lead with Sam Burns and Joseph Bramlett, and they're all within a stroke. But yeah, we got Rory McIlroy in the mix. That makes it even better. So we'll see, but I think it'll be an entertaining tournament, some good players, all good stuff. Tonight, Game 5, Timberwolves, Mavericks. T-Wolves avoided a sweep. The interesting thing is now it's back in Minnesota. They lost both games, and they've not been a good home team. Denver beat them twice in Minnesota in their series. Dallas beat them both times in Minnesota in this series. The key for them, Karl-Anthony Towns fouled out in Game 4. Rudy Gobert also had 5 fouls, so their big guys got in foul trouble. Edwards is great in the second half, was great late in the second half. Karl-Anthony Towns knocked down shots, so they came to play. I do think the Mavericks will close it out tonight. I think they'll come up with a better game plan. Kyrie needs to knock down some shots. He had an off game in Game 4. But they play well on the road. Won in OKC in Game 5, then closed it out at home in Game 6. You get a road game. You're comfortable playing in Minnesota. You've won there multiple times, as I mentioned. Luka, Kyrie. Minnesota didn't want to get swept, and they did. Credit to them. They battled hard. The NBA was thrilled because you don't have over a week before the start of the NBA Finals with nothing to watch and people forgetting that basketball still exists until next fall. So you have another game of intrigue. Every game's been close, so I expect the same. Fourth quarter to come down the stretch looking, okay, who's going to make the better play here? Who's going to show up for, can Anthony Edwards knock down shots late in the game, or is he going to be tired? How does Kyrie look in the fourth quarter? Does he have legs? Does he have energy? We look at the odds tonight. NBA. Minnesota is a 4.5-point home favorite tonight. I would take Dallas plus 4.5 because I have Dallas winning the game, so cover the points. Even to win this series, I find it interesting. You can get Dallas is only minus 560 to win the series. That'll be more. Minnesota plus 420. 3-1, you're down 3-0. You're trying to become the first team in NBA history to come back from 3-0 down. It's only plus 420 odds to win the series. You put a hundy on it, you only win 420. GMAB, that's garbage. I wouldn't bet that. FanDuel, come on, I love you, but come on, guys. Dallas, Boston. It should be fun. But I got Dallas winning tonight, Minnesota. Gearing up for a fun finals, which will begin a week from this evening. But we'll see. Minnesota's tough. They don't give up. They come out to play. Edwards is great in the first quarter of Game 4. I think he'll be great to start the first quarter tonight, ready to play, hungry to attack in front of that whole Minnesota crowd. We're going to talk UFC tomorrow, UFC 302 this weekend in Newark, New Jersey. Dustin Poirier versus Islam Makhachev, Sean Strickland in the co-main event. So we will tee that up tomorrow. We'll also react to Game 5 between the Panthers and Rangers and other sports news. So that's all coming up tomorrow, Friday podcast, getting you geared up for the weekend. Hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday. Enjoy the nice weather. We'll be back with you all tomorrow. Until then, take care. I'm Noah Warren. This is To The Point.